Hello, travelers. Come on in. My name is Thomas the Human Bard. I am joined by...
Mercy, the Tiefling Wizard.
And Onog the Half-Orc Barbarian. Hey, Mercy, this is normally a Thomas and me thing. Did you get an invitation, or, you know?
I invited myself!
Oh, cool. All right, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was cool.
The shade.
Yeah, I mean, because it wasn't like a date or anything, right?
Yeah,
like, it's cool that she
no.
joins, right?
Okay, oh my god, if you guys want me to leave,
No,
like,
it's-
if this
no,
was
it's cool, it's
if
fine.
this was like a dinner thing with like
Oh,
you and
no.
Onog.
No, it's
It's
okay.
just a meal
fine.
between friends, right? You know.
Like
just,
I heard
Yeah.
I heard Thomas ask Onog if he wanted to like meet up at the tavern later, and I was like, oh, we're all doing a thing. I'll invite
Yeah.
myself. I'll come too. They'll be happy to see me.
And
we're not trying to be alone.
Very happy to see you. We're very happy that you've joined us on this. I'm feeling a side quest in the air tonight. It's a side quest. Thanks for joining us on the side quest, Mercy. I've done side quests
so
with you.
welcome.
And I've done side quests with Onog.
We haven't
and
done
we
one
done,
together.
no, we've all done one together.
Yeah, but we also had
Where
Bean.
we-
Did we not?
No,
No?
where we made a
I
triad
thought Bean was
player race.
We did do
Yes.
that. I remember.
Oh, that's
But
right. Yeah.
yes, that was one of maybe our
I
first
haven't
one.
been on one of the Unearthed Arcana side quests before.
Correct. On this episode of Side Quests on the Copperfoxinn, Season 2, Episode 7, I don't know. We are discussing the newest Unearthed Arcana, the first Unearthed Arcana of 2020.
Woo woo.
The year of our Lord Farquaad 2020. Subclasses, Part 1.
The year of our Lord Asmodeus.
So we've been, over the past couple of... Yikes, what alignment? What's your alignment over there?
I'm a tiefling. What do you want from me?
She's got to respect her grandpa, you know.
Yeah. Asmodeus.
Yeah, there it is.
I already made that earlier. We
Yep.
got
every
throw it in.
time.
Yeah.
Every time.
So we've done a bunch of these recently, and there was the class feature variant, which was its own entire big thing. But Wizard of the Coast has just been continually pumping out subclass options.
That they have.
Almost like they're getting ready for something, and one day we'll see what that thing is. It wasn't, it turned out, the book that just released, or is about to release, because that was a Critical Role setting book, which is
pretty
really
cool. Like, good
Yeah.
for them.
That's a different thing than I was expecting, and it was
Congrats
really
to
cool.
them.
Congrats
Apparently,
to them.
it's
That's
also
awesome.
the most pre-ordered D&D book except for the player's handbook itself. So,
Wow.
congrats to Matt Mercer and the Critical Role
Yes.
crew for that.
Very much. I'm sure that they'll be very happy we are giving them congratulations.
Yep.
They all look up to us.
Yeah,
Yeah, they constantly watch our material. They
They're all
are one
big
of our
fans.
4 viewers.
Yep. Yeah. Me and Matt go way back, you know.
Yeah, I like some of his tweets sometimes. We're pretty tight.
Maddie, as I call him.
He doesn't
mean-
like my tweets, but like he reads them.
That is just it's just explicitly, you know, the American dream going from, hey, we stream playing D&D to I wrote one of the most popular D&D books and it hasn't even been released yet.
In the interview with him for D&D Beyond content, they mentioned that this is the first official setting being added to the D&D settings pantheon since Eberron. And I saw it break Matt Mercer's brain as he
Yeah.
realized he is D&D now.
Yeah, his world is canonical with D&D.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
I love that Wizards did that.
Yeah. But we will not be discussing that book yet. Maybe we will one day. Today we'll be discussing Subclasses, Part 1. So there are 4 subclasses throughout this, and for this episode we will be discussing the first one, the Barbarian subclass, Path of the Beast.
Beast mode.
All right, I know when I'm needed. All right, so
Yeah, Onog, this is you. I'm standing aside. I'm gesturing to the red carpet
Doing a
I've
deep
rolled
bow.
out. I've pulled
Thank
the
you,
velvet
thank
rope
you, thank
aside.
you.
Come on in.
I also
Welcome
just
home.
think it's also very nice and convenient that because the class starts with a B, we're usually first.
Yes. Almost always.
Almost exclusively always, except for that darn artificer.
That new guy.
That new guy, he hasn't even earned his chops. All right. But, okay, so this is the Path of the Beast. This is another, and you might be thinking, wait, Onog, there is already the path of the beasts. It's the totem, and it's like, no, that's different. That's very different.
No, that's the path of animals.
That's the path of a kind of beast. This is the path of explicitly beasts. So, so this is more of a flavoring of, in all honesty, it's kind of going in the direction of some form of lycanthropy.
Yeah. A shape-shifty
so it's basically the path of the inner beast that then, as you rage, comes forward. So, barbarians who walk the path of the beast draw from their rage from the bestial spark burning within their souls, as one does. That beast howls to be released and bursts forth in the throes of rage. Those who tread this path might be inhabited, or inhibited, depending on how you view it. By a primal spirit or descended from shapeshifters. You can choose the origin of your feral might or determine it randomly by rolling on the origin beast table. All right, D4. Tell them what they won.
It's a 3.
So on a 3, a fey spirit gifted you with the ability to adopt different bestial aspects. So it is kind of nice that they have these different options. One of your parents is a lycanthrope. You've descended from legendary druids. A fey spirit just did it. The ancient animal spirit dwells within you. You're Etherian. Different kinds of things.
Yeah.
None of these are just like, you got bit. Because they're not actual lycanthropy.
Because you aren't a lycanthrope. You are influenced by lycanthropy.
Right, which is quite the fine line to dance upon.
Lycanthropoperism.
Lycanthropoperism. Where you turn into a wolf pope.
The lycanthrope.
The leader of all werewolves, the lycanthrope.
Yes, of course.
Yikes.
Darn it, that means I definitely can't introduce lycanthropy to you guys as a more plot-oriented thing, because you'll just call the leader the lycanthropope now.
The lycanthropope.
As we should.
This is very much the immediate sort of flavor that it called to me was like, some of the origins of the real world, like werewolf myths, have to do with like warriors that acted beastly in combat and would like black out and stuff, which also is where the barbarian draws from, and it's that kind of merging of like the werewolf's origins and the barbarian's origins of this like warrior who the beast within them bursts forward when they're in combat, but they still manage to contain it to some degree. Right. They don't just like turn into a wolf. They just gain some of its power.
Mm-hmm. And it's very, actually, on that note, a very interesting both return to form and merging of like the original concept of what a barbarian means.
Yeah.
In lore, kind of a thing.
Definitely.
But yeah, so
next one, Form of the Beast.
Yeah, the Form of the Beast. So with all packed rage paths, you get it at level 3. So when you enter your rage, you can transform, revealing the bestial power within you. Until your rage ends, you manifest a natural melee weapon, choosing one of the following options each time you rage. So you don't pick one and stick with it. You can choose every time.
Pick and choose whenever you want.
So yeah, Thomas, do you want to read the abilities themselves?
So you can choose between 3. There's a bite, claws, and tail. So bite. Your mouth transforms into a bestial snout or great mandibles. Your choice. You can pick mandibles or snout. That's nice. Your bite now deals 1d8 piercing damage on a hit. Once on each of your turns, when you damage a creature with your bite, you regain a number of hit points equal to your Constitution modifier, minimum of 1 hit point.
We vampires now?
Kind of. We're like feasting on like a werewolf like bites into them and you gain your life.
We feast upon their meat.
The blood falls down, or mandibles. Claws. Your hand transforms into claws, which deal 1d6 slashing damage on a hit. When you take the attack action on your turn and make an attack with your claws, you can make 1 additional attack using your claws as part of the same action.
That's useful.
I love it. I love it when they put it as part of the same action, not as a bonus action. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Especially fantastic. Because as a barbarian, your bonus action is kind of occupied.
You're doing stuff like that.
Very
or
important.
at least for one turn.
Finally, tail. You grow a lashing, spiny tail, which deals 1d12 piercing damage on a hit and has the reach property, which means that it has 10 feet, I believe, is how that works.
Obviously similar to Alter Self, but not the same as Alter Self.
Yeah, only in these specific ways. Now, I am curious. If, for instance, the player race at the time already has a tail, do you grow a second tail? Like if you are a lizard folk barbarian and you choose tail, do you just now have 2 tails? Because it says you grow a tail.
Or does the tail like buff up and become all spiny?
Where
and
do I
nasty?
grow the tail
Yeah,
from? I mean, if my tailbone is occupied by my tiefling
My
tail
real
as it
tail.
is-
Probably wherever you want.
Yeah, just out of my forehead.
Yeah, out of your hand.
Just my stomach.
Yeah, why did I open this door?
You did this. You have done this yourself. Yeah. This is cool to me. I like that it's this like single part of your body is transforming. You don't have to worry about all of you transforms and you now have all these different stats. It's just like, no, you just get one new kind of attack. That's what we're doing here.
I am having a hard time not picturing that famously horrible CGI of The Rock turning into the Scorpion Boy if you just paused it halfway through that morph.
Yeah.
Just like battled CGI.
His like glassy skin that like hasn't had any shading rendered onto it.
Yeah, just like painfully glued together.
I think that it's cool that you can have options for obviously just like damage dealing, but each of these gives you
A different
like
kind
some
of
sort of
fighting.
utility. Yeah. They have a utility to them, which is really cool. But let's move on. Bestial Soul, the 6th level Path of the Beast feature.
All right.
The feral spirit within you grows in power, causing the natural weapons from your form of the beast to count as magical for the purposes of overcoming resistance and immunity to non-magical attacks and damage. A very important step in any class that gives you new weapons, because eventually
They're going to be obsolete.
Yeah. You can also call on the feral spirit to help you adapt to your surroundings. When you finish a short or long rest, choose one of the following benefits, which lasts until you finish a short or long rest. You gain a swimming speed equal to your walking speed and can breathe underwater. You gain a climbing speed equal to your walking speed, and you can climb difficult surfaces, including upside down on ceilings, without needing to make ability checks. Or, when you jump, you can make a strength athletics check and extend your jump by a number of feet equal to the check's total. You can make this special check only once per turn. Jumping in D&D is weird. Don't do it. It's a hassle for everyone.
Never leave the ground. Always leave at least 1 foot on the ground, because otherwise...
Never jump.
Like, the only time I think I've ever explicitly jumped is when I was playing Sir Toad, which is a grung, which have, like, explicit jumping abilities. And that is it.
It's a really weird thing. In real life, there was a moment for me. I was at college, and I was walking to class, and I realized, like, the thought passed through my mind, when was the last time I jumped?
Yeah.
And I realized it was during, like, a basketball game in high school. And I went, oh no. And walking to class, I just did a little hop real quick.
Just to reset that, that clock.
timer.
Yeah, so it's like, this needs to be not that long ago.
I literally had the same experience not 2 days ago. I was at lunch with my sister, and I told her, I was like, people get mad when they can't jump in video games, but no one jumps in real life. And then I just did a little hop on the way to my car because I was existentially bothered by how long it had been since I jumped.
It's weird. It doesn't come up anymore.
Well, I had the exact opposite scenario where my foot really hurt, and I was like, why does my foot hurt? Oh, it was that time I jumped. It was the thing I did last night, but it was so cold I didn't feel that I definitely twisted my ankle.
Oh, no. I do think it's interesting to compare both of these abilities to Alter Self.
Oh, you're talking
in a
about the
little bit more
subclass
detail.
again.
Oh, yeah, I'm back to
we're back to this.
No, I thought we were talking
we
about
were-
how
we were-
sedentary our lifestyle is
about
as
our lives.
I'll get
as
these papers out of the trash can again.
adult Americans.
I thought the viewers had lost interest in the subclass long ago.
But I do think it's interesting to compare because for anyone who might be wondering, how does that balance out? Why would you do this and not that? So in Alter Self, your only options are the aquatic adaptation, which is basically covered there in Bestial Soul, change appearance, which is different from all of this, and natural weapons gives you a weapon that does 1d6 damage, and you have a +1 bonus.
Similar to the claws.
Similar to the claws. So the bite is stronger, the tail is
And it
stronger,
heals you,
and
has
it heals
reach.
you, and it has reach,
Yeah.
and it's not using a spell slot, which is
And
a
the
barbarian you
claws.
don't have.
And the claws give you an additional action, an additional
Oh yeah,
attack,
yeah.
which is huge.
So this is better. Like
Yeah.
it is more powerful significantly.
This
So,
isn't just the spell alter self stretched out like butter over too much toast.
yeah.
Which I would
just
hope
wanted to clarify that
which
for
I would
people who might
hope
be
that the
wondering.
core class features of a of a subclass it was stronger than a single what is it, second level spell.
You sure would hope that, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's a second level spell.
It is interesting to note though that like you can only pick instead of like the other abilities where you can pick whenever you rage, you can only pick these on short or long rests, so you have to think in advance what skill you will need to use. Like more unless you're going in an explicitly aquatic area, like probably because of the weird stipulation on the jumping one where it says you can only do it once per turn. That almost like guarantees that the spider climb ability for the second ability is going to be
always
just
gonna be
strictly
the one.
better, unless there's a rare situation where there just isn't a wall to climb on and you just need to start jumping.
It makes me laugh just picturing this big beefy barbarian boy just always crawling up the walls like a gecko.
I mean,
it's
flavor it as
Horrible
with
spider
your claws.
legs.
Yeah,
No,
like-
I was thinking more like a mountain lion of
Well,
like
if you
grappling
call
into
back
the-
to the original, if you recall back to the original Underworld movie, they have a scene where, for absolutely no reason, because they could have just been walking on the ground to chase after her, the main vampire lady is being chased by werewolves that are just crawling across the walls, and it's really bad. It's like if you wanted to make an argument against practical effects, show someone that scene. It's just people in furry Godzilla costumes just wiggling on a wall as they move across it. It's super bad.
See, but now instead of it being actually a very cool kind of cheetah mountain lion-esque ability, I do want it to be like just sticky gecko hands and like tongue flopping out with the big stupid lizard face with like their eyes looking opposite directions.
I do want it to be that like your backstory is like, my father was a werewolf and I have sticky hands, and it's like, wait, why though? Why is that happening?
If my butt falls off, it grows back.
If
my father was a werewolf, my mother was a gecko.
But it's just one of those things
gecko.
where it does kind of, because it has this modality to it, it does run into the issue of consistency of narrative, where it's just like, why would, if my narrative is that I got it from my father was a lycanthrope, why can I breathe underwater because of it? And it just kind of runs into that weird
Why
flavor
do I grow
cage.
mandibles?
Yeah, why? Well, I mean, in that instance, you would just
wouldn't
grow
choose
a
it.
werewolf
I
head.
know.
But-
you theoretically could choose mandibles.
As a general thing, I actually really enjoy subclasses that make you choose something and then stick to that. And if you do that, you have to make it more powerful than if you're like, because if you're giving people options, they don't all have to be super strong because the variety is powerful in of itself. But I like things that make you pick a flavor and stick to it for that reason, because that way you can create more narrative consistency for yourself.
Yeah, if you could, can you, I guess I'm not quite exactly clear about this, Onak, can you change Totem Barbarian totems, like, after a rest or something?
No,
Like,
so I was actually going to
you're
bring that
locked
up.
in.
Is that there are
Yeah.
the three layers of modality in the barbarian class or subclasses. So there's this one where it literally lets you choose every short rest or while you're raging. Then there's the Totem Barbarian where you choose a totem at like 3rd level, but then when you get the 6th level ability, you can choose a different totem. That doesn't change what totem you chose at 3rd level. So like you can have a bear totem and then a eagle totem and then a wolf totem, and like you chose all of those abilities separately, and that's honestly in I believe the Sword Coast Adventure Guide, it like reflavors those as like, this is the path of, you know, the Wendigo or the Snarl Beast or, you know, whatever, where it's like you choose this, you choose the bear totem first, and then you chose the elk totem next, and that it's, you know, and that's the owl bear
That's its
or whatever.
specific thing. Yeah.
That's its own specific thing.
Yeah, and that can make sense narratively too.
But it's like, yeah, there's nothing preventing you from changing what totem you have, but it's just you can't change what you already chose. And then there's, on the other end of that, is the storm, the Path of the Storm Herald, where it's you pick a storm flavor and then I think it lets you choose it again when you level up, but it changes what abilities you chose before, kind of a thing. So
yeah, if you choose a new storm one, you get all.
Yeah,
of that
you no
storm
longer
level
chose
changes.
the lightning storm abilities. You now have the firestorm abilities from level 3 and level 6, kind of a thing.
Yeah,
Because I think that can still work narratively, even if you have like 3 different totems that you just chose once and changed, because maybe you flavor that as like, and now I've achieved oneness with this creature, and now I've added it onto this other creature, so that can still feel like it makes sense in a storyline. Because I've run into it before being a moon druid, where sometimes I get these like signature animals that I keep turning into that are flavorful with my backstory and everything. But then when you're in a situation where in the moment it would be so much more useful to turn into like some random dinosaur that doesn't fit
I
your
just need to
flavor
be
at
an
all.
ankylosaur
Sometimes
right now.
Yeah, and sometimes it can feel like a battle where you're like, oh, that's not really the vibe I was going for, but I don't want to be useless right now.
in the fight between utility and flavor, often flavor is left by the wayside.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to feel useless to your group.
Which just ties back to like my dad was a werewolf and I have sticky hands.
Yeah, yeah. All right, Odon, what's the next one? The 10th level here.
All right, so the next step is Infectious Fury. When you hit a creature with your natural weapons while you are raging, the spirit within you can curse your target with rabid fury. The target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw of 8 plus your constitution modifier plus your proficiency bonus. The standard procedure, just choosing constitution.
Remember that one time it was 10? Whatever happened to that? That was crazy.
That was weird. Let's not talk about that. Or suffer one of the following effects of your choice. So they have to succeed, or you pick one of these. So the first one is the target must use its reaction to make a melee attack against another creature of your choice that you can see,
So they all
or
rabies.
it takes 2d12 psychic damage.
Just get them with the damage.
Nice.
You can use this
Psychic
feature a
damage
number
is
of
no
times
joke.
equal to your constitution modifier, a minimum of once, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Nice. So you can make them go crazy with your bites.
Yeah, but only with your natural weapons while raging.
Mm-hmm.
But you can do it every hit. I mean,
You can
up
do
to
it
the
every
number of
hit up
times,
to
like,
your constitution modifier, yeah.
You have your charges of it, right?
Which
but
could be almost enough for all of combat. Yeah.
Or on one turn, if you hit 5 times,
you just
based on
murder their brain.
Attacks and you could just like go to town on this person. Yeah.
And
That's
yeah,
a
you
lot
can
of
only
damage
make
to
them.
stack.
So, and that is something to note. You can only make someone use their reaction once because most creatures, with the exception of 1 or 2, have one reaction.
Yeah.
So like you can only do that once, but then you can just melt their brain with psychic damage.
That's really
Yeah, but I'm
good.
saying for single target DPS, that's not a bad add 2d12 to every attack this turn. Like pretty spicy.
And for anyone who might not be aware, it being psychic damage is significant because almost nothing is resistant or immune to psychic damage.
And the
Almost
things that
not
are
nothing, but
resistant to
most
them,
things
you
are
will
not.
know. You will know real quick.
So that's stronger than it being bludgeoning damage or fire damage or something that's like really good.
Psychic damage is it's one of the good damages.
It's one of them good.
Yeah, the only situation I can think of psychic damage being a downside are I think there's a path of the warlock, like a certain patron of the warlock, like of the ancient ones, I think, or the great old ones, at a certain point grants you resistance to psychic damage, and then any psychic damage you do take is immediately reflected back on the person that like causes it. And that's the only situation, other than of course normal immunity or resistance, that I could think of. It's a downside that it's psychic
That's
damage.
so good. That's so good
Yeah, it's
Cthulhu
good.
flavor.
It's good flavor. All right, the final one, Call of the Hunt, 14th level. The beast within grows so powerful that you can spread its ferocity to your allies. When you enter your rage, you can choose a number of willing creatures you can see within 30 feet of you, equal to your constitution modifier, minimum of 1 creature. Until your rage ends, the chosen creatures gain the reckless attack feature and have advantage on saving throws against being frightened. You also gain 5 temporary hit points for each creature that accepts the benefit. You can choose this feature, or you can use this feature a number of times equal to your Constitution modifier, minimum of once. You regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest.
That's very fun.
It's really reckless attack. Let's Onog, summarize that for us because it's not.
So
in the
reckless
document
attack is the option that barbarians have, whether they're raging or not, from level 2, that they may choose to make their first and all melee attacks they make that turn at advantage. However, they grant advantage to literally everything that would choose to attack them. So it's not only is it a good way to guarantee your hits, your strikes hit, but it is a wonderful way to intentionally draw aggro to yourself as you are much tougher than, say, a wizard or something like that. So it is, and the ability to grant this to anyone you want is actually not that bad, and especially too because there are some classes that run into a bit of a hard time trying to gain advantage on their own, or some classes that actually want advantage more than anything else, like rogues, for instance.
Yeah.
However, they have ways to gain sneak attack other than that, but giving a rogue advantage means they can just go to town on their sneak attack ability on somebody.
Yeah, it's really good. I think this may be the first time I've ever seen, and I may just have never seen one before, of giving, because you can give like effects and immunities and things like that, but giving a class feature.
Giving someone a class feature. The closest I've seen, of giving someone a class feature is, I believe, the Purple Knight. They have the ability, but they don't give. They have the ability to give the effects of the second wind when they take one, but they don't give other people second wind.
The second wind.
And so this is
the thing.
The fact
this
that
is
they
really
worded
cool.
that way is interesting.
I love that. That's so cool. I think that's a really cool place to explore in the future. Of like, that's never been thought about before. What if you could, as part of your ability, give other people one of your lower level abilities?
Very cool.
Like, that's awesome.
This is such a unique headspace to be working with. But also what I do want to draw attention to is this doesn't because if this just you give everyone a second level barbarian ability, it actually would be a little bit underwhelming, especially as a 14th level.
As the 14th level, sure.
Yeah, as like your subclass's capstone, basically. But the thing I'm interested in is the temporary hit points you get for each person that accepts. And I like the wording of that. Each person that accepts this ability, you gain 5. Now, I want to draw your attention to the wording. It says a number of willing creatures you can see. It doesn't say enemies or allies. Yeah, so if you really want to make a ballroom blitz, you can give this to your enemies.
Feature, they can have it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because at a certain point, it actually doesn't matter who has reckless attack. As coming from a barbarian,
we all do know one time.
Because if one person has reckless attack, everyone has reckless attack.
That's great.
Yeah. So giving this to your enemies actually doesn't hurt your allies too much, because if they wanted to use the ability, they were going to be attacked with advantage anyways. And so offering this weird violent olive leaf or olive branch to your enemies to just stack up your own health becomes a very interesting tactical choice.
Can we wait a minute? Can we bag of rats this? Can you carry around a bag of rats with you and offer them it just to gain temporary hit points for yourself?
This is the most bag of ratsable ability I've ever seen.
If you look in the bag and you can see them.
Yeah, if you look in the bag and go, hey, you all want reckless attack? Cool.
Y'all guys want to go nuts
allies,
in there?
It does say allies in the flavor sentence before, but it doesn't say it in the mechanical sentence.
It says creatures.
So I think you can't get away with it.
So you can basically, if you can trick your enemies into accepting this powerful boon, you get stronger than they would have been able to handle. And you're a barbarian. They had advantage on you anyways because you are definitely using reckless attack.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's not changing it for you, really.
Mm-hmm. You're just getting more health to deal with. Which is more important for you because you have resistance to the primary combat damages.
Yeah. The trifecta. What do we think overall? Final say on the Path of the Beast. Mercy, you're new here. Why don't you give us... You're new to the Unearthed Arcana scene.
Welcome to my new segment, Lycanthra Dope or Lycanthra Nope.
I hate this segment already.
Don't forget to buy my merch.
Segment canceled.
All right. Do you think it is lycanthrodope or lycanthronope?
I think it's lycanthrodope. I think it's very cool. I'm never saying that again. I think it's very good and cool. I like it. I think it's fun. I think I wish that bits of it felt a little more flavorful, but it's hard when you're trying to. I get that it's hard when they're trying to leave it open to however you want to flavor it, but when you think lycanthropy, I don't think sticky hands. Like, they're just certain things, or like breathing underwater,
or like a spiky tail even.
Yeah.
This is an opinion to you specifically, Mercy. If they had just committed to, this is path of the half lycanthrope, and they just cut out all of the they just said, like, when you get your thing, it's just you get like wolf claws or a wolf snout, and it's all like it commits to that theming, and it doesn't give the broad options of like any animal, whatever you want. It's specifically that, and then those, due to that, there's a bit of reworking. Do you think that's a stronger subclass, or do you think it loses because of the lack of like, well, I wanted to play one that was like the spirit of the rhino within me?
I would say that for myself, I would prefer it if it were more specific, but I understand that for people who are not as used to using homebrew or tweaking things to homebrew them themselves, that could be worse. Because for me, I would rather it was more specific, and then if I want to flavor it differently, I'll just do that.
Okay, sure.
And so I prefer to have things be very because if you pick one flavor, you can get so much deeper into that.
Talk to your DM and be like, hey, I know it says you grow a snout, but can it just be a horn instead? It's all mechanically the same.
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
sure.
So I think I would prefer that, but I understand why Wizards of the Coast, trying to appeal to a broader group of D&D players, would not do that.
Sure. Oh, Nog, same question to you. Throw it over to you. What do you think of it?
I think this is mechanically, it's very cool. Once again, just to kind of harp onto that flavor mechanics, it runs kind of like a little bit of a taboo thing, and I think that's what we're mentally running into, is that it does give us the options of saying like, oh, it's just a fey creature that could have blessed you with this ability, so it's just random animals that you pick. But then if you want it to be your father was a lycanthrope, then you have to choose to not make use of the rest of the abilities that would conflict
weird.
with that, or otherwise it would feel weird. And it's one of those things where it's like, it's not limiting you in what you can do, but it's forcing you to kind of lobotomize your own subclass on purpose in order to fall in with the flavor that you wanted, kind of a thing. And I don't necessarily agree with that, because then it's like, well, if my father was a werewolf, then the only thing I can choose because I can't choose the spike tail, even though that's an ability that I could definitely do. It would feel weird to do it, but now I'm limiting myself. Yeah. And I think that's the issue we're running into mentally, is that it's like, it's forcing us to limit our own choices if we want to play a different flavor of it, which is a flavor that it presented in the first place. And it's one of those things where it has that inherent conflict in our brains. And so we're running into a stubbed toe that way, kind of a thing.
I think for me, I would prefer it if it was called Path of Beasthood, and it was like you are turning into a kind of lycanthrope for some reason, but not a normal one. And you got some variation of like, is it a bite or is it claws? Or like, is it climbing speed or jumping or whatever? But it wasn't as broad as it is now. And the things that it narrowed in on were a bit more focused design-wise.
And because of the limitation, we're stronger. Yeah.
Yeah, and that way it would fit really well, because that's really cool for the game Bloodborne, by the people who made Dark Souls. Hey, Dark Souls again. Bloodborne, it's all about like the beast plague, where people turn into werewolves. It's very specific, like they're turning into werewolves.
They're turning into mutant werewolves,
Mutant werewolves, but they're like partially doing it, where some of them just have like one long arm and like a wolf snout, but then they're still mostly human. And I love that vibe of like this sort of beast plague, and that could be a cool like barbarian mindset to get into, of like the beast mind is overcoming you, and like the blood, like the taste for blood in your mouth, you need to like embrace your beastly senses, but you're like struggling against madness and losing yourself within it. Like that would be cool for me. And that I think is more worth it than like you get a swim speed, and I could lose that for that flavor.
Well, and it's also one of those things too where it's like a kind of once again kind of a brick wall we keep running into with some of these more recent Unearthed Arcanas is that instead of like giving a suggested flavorful backstory like Berserker Barbarian or Storm Herald Barbarian or even Totem Barbarian give, where it's like you don't have to have this specific backstory, but like it is cool for this backstory. These most recent ones are kind of like forcing you to as opposed to informing a backstory, they are forcing a backstory where it's like you have to have done this and that is why you have these abilities as a barbarian, whereas before a totem barbarian could be reflavored as you don't even care about nature kind of a thing. You're just like nah, I'm just good with animals and also I can bench press you, but whereas this is like you have to have been influenced some way specifically from an outside source to have gained this kind of a thing.
It's interesting that with homebrew, a totally unofficial homebrew, don't mind that at all. I don't mind at all having a background baked in because I expect them to be hyper specific a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But then when it comes from wizards, even if it's Unearthed Arcana, it's not like canon.
Yeah, and suddenly
you still
we have an
expect
issue
it
with
to
it.
give you a little more freedom than that.
I want to be able to take whatever background I want, whatever race I want, and say, I am an urchin who grew up in the city streets, and have this still be a viable option for me to pick, which it isn't really. I'd have to very specifically work my personal backstory around why am I this subclass, as opposed to it being something that can come out of play. A lot of subclasses, you take them at later levels. You are a fighter for a few levels, and then you specialize, maybe because of something that you participated in, and you went, I found that I can do magic, now I'm an Eldritch Knight.
Maybe you don't know what your Paladin Oath is going to be yet.
You don't know what your Paladin Oath is going to be yet, or whatever. Yeah.
But with a lot of these, they demand a backstory have already existed for three levels.
Yeah.
And it's
for
like,
3 levels.
but but what if that's not what I wanted to? I just noticed this, and it's a cool subclass I wanted to take, but now I have to retcon who my parents were,
Oh yeah, by the way, your dad was a werewolf, I guess.
Oh guys, I forgot. My dad's a gecko.
It hasn't come up before, but now that's officially
or like in the instance of, I think it was the rogue, like the resurrected rogue, where it's like, oh guys, by the way, I apparently died at one point.
I've died many times.
I've died many times and didn't tell you, even though I'm level 3 and that shouldn't be a thing I should be capable of doing.
And nowhere in the class does it say I lose those memories or anything. Like, I've known this the whole time.
But I just haven't brought it up, question mark?
Yeah.
Welcome to why so many people start at level 3.
Well,
I don't think we've had a single campaign where we started below level 3 because of this idea.
I think that's also very true. Wizards knows that. I saw an interview recently where they were like, the 2 most common starting levels are 1 and 3.
Yeah.
With it being pretty close. Like, a lot of people want to start from scratch, but a lot of people want to start with their subclass already done. And the game currently doesn't build in a very slick way of starting at a later level. It expects that you're starting at 1.
Yeah.
It doesn't,
because there's no
chapter on how to start at a later level in the DMG.
Well, or if you start as a wizard or something, you're like, how many spells should I have found? Yeah.
How much gold would I have probably had at this point? That stuff isn't in the book at all.
Yeah.
But they know that most people do that. So these, I think that's maybe what we're seeing, is they're designing for 3rd level. They're designing this for... This is where your campaign starts, is at 3rd level, so you don't have to worry about that awkward 3 levels of, I guess my dad was a lycanthrope and I never talked about it till now.
It would be interesting to see if in the next future edition of D&D, if maybe your subclass is baked in from the beginning. I would be curious to see if maybe they decide that's the direction it's going.
Or if there are extended rules for if you start at later levels.
Because there is the inherent discrepancy for certain classes where it's like some of them get their subclass at level 1. Like, I believe clerics get it at level 1. Other people like wizards and druids get it at level 2, and then most everyone else don't get it until level 3. So it's like, why is there that discrepancy, and what does it mean?
Some of them, definitely. All right, well, let's wrap it up there. I think overall we all agree, and I think we would all go on record as saying we agree with what I'm about to say legally, that this is lycanthrope. Let us know what you think of this Path of the Beast listeners, down in the comments below, let us know if you think it succeeds or fails. Would you like a more lycanthrope-focused version of this, or do you want to be able to keep the modality and utility of what they're going for here? Give us your opinions in the comments. Remember to like the video and subscribe for future D&D content. And until next time, keep on adventuring.